All right, Jim. Gifford Nielsen says, first he sends his best, and then he said,
Good old Giff.
Jim is the most caring, soft-hearted man you will ever find. Is that true?
I tell you, Giff's a good man. Well, I feel I'm a pretty good dude, once you get to know me, but I have my faults too.
These friends, quarterback friends somewhat, that surround you at BYU, whether it's Scheide, Wilson, Young, Bosco that came after you, what a unique bunch.
Yeah, we had a good group of guys. I think what we all had in common, though, we had a great system, and we had a head coach that would let his offensive coordinators coach. And he hired some great coordinators. I think the best one he ever hired was Doug Scoville. I think Gifford will attest to that. Mark Wilson, myself. That guy was just a brilliant offensive mind, and I learned more from him in the 2 years that I got to play for him than the 15 I played in the pros.
Why is that? Because when you come in, college kids know everything. They're the fastest, they're the best, and here comes an older guy that's literally going to shape your career. Why'd you listen to him?
We thought he was hilarious, for one. We called him the Pink Panther. He kind of strutted around. He wore that big, safari kind of hat. And he just loved. He goes, on Friday nights, he says, we're gonna light that scoreboard up like Las Vegas. He goes, I want those numbers just changing all the time. He just loved to throw the football and score touchdowns. That's all he wanted to do. And I used to try to avoid him, because if I was ever in the football office, I'd have to be in his office up on the chalkboard. And I look back at it now, I learned a hell of a lot, but I was actually trying to avoid him a lot, because I'd be in there for an hour at least. But I did learn a lot from him, and we missed him.
Isn't it amazing what you can learn as a young guy and retain it, and then as you look back at your life, you can connect the dots to what was taught?
Oh, there's no doubt. Like I said, I learned more from him in the 2 years that I got to play. I played for 7 different teams in the NFL, and I didn't learn half as much from those coordinators that I did from Doug.
What is your greatest memory in this locker room?
Oh, boy. There was a lot of great memories here. I don't remember a whole lot of losses coming in here after a loss.
Yeah, there weren't many.
I think we were just reminiscing about it the last interview I just did. The night that my name went up in the stadium here, they ended up losing that game that night, and I think it was to Utah State. And previously, the last time they'd lost to Utah State was when I was playing, and so it was a little bittersweet that night, having your name go up in the stadium and lose a game. But yeah, that's what I remember about it.
Brett, will you go ask those guys to?
Hold on 1 second. We'll sneak Ty in so he can listen to the rest.
Was he doing an interview out there?
Yeah, I want to hear the good stories.
You just missed a couple already.
Hawaii, I want to hear some of those balcony swinging stories.
I'd get Lavelle in trouble. We don't do that.
We'll get the green light.
Those Japan ones were great. Oh.
Were you talking about the Yokohama Bowl? Is that what that was? The 78?
Well, 77 we went and we played 2 Japanese all-star teams.
Yeah.
We were there for like 10 days. Played 2 games in 10 days.
And didn't UNLV come over?
That was the next year, yeah.
That was the
next
next
78.
year. Okay. Yeah, those were good times. That night your jersey was retired and your name's put up there and the crowd roared just a little bit louder than for everybody else. What did that feel like?
It was awesome. I didn't think it ever happened because I didn't think I'd ever graduate. I didn't like school when I was in school. And back then, I think I was 55 when I finally graduated. So it took me 37 years to get that diploma. But I'm glad I got it done. I talked to Lavelle about it, and I'd promised my folks that I'd get it done. And I saw Lavelle, and he said, "Get it done." He goes, "I don't know how much longer I've got left. I want to see your name up there." And I was glad I was able to do that before he passed.
And you did for your kids too.
Yeah, my sons, they gave me grief because I I said, what am I paying for? They went to college for 4 years. I said, did you graduate? No. And they said, well, you didn't graduate either. This was back then, right? And I said, well, at least I had a job. I knew what I was going to do. But since I've graduated, I said, look, I got it done. You guys could get it done. My daughters, no problem. They went through 4 years and graduated. But my sons were like me. They didn't like school much.
So you sent them a picture of your diploma?
Oh yeah, they were they were here. They saw it.
On that night with that ovation, and Blaine and I were at the top of the stadium listening to it, in that crowd you got thousands of people that never even saw you play, but they know who you are and they know what you did here. What does that legacy mean to you?
Well, I'm hoping some of the stories are positive, other than the crazy Catholic kid that was here. I had a lot of, I still have a lot of great friends that I play with here. Tommy Homo, for one, Andy Reid, him and I still keep in contact all the time. Pluto unfortunately passed away this past year. I still talk to a lot of guys that I play with. So it's, that's the thing about sports. This is what you miss about the guys being around in this setting here in the locker room, just BSing. Whatever happens on the field happens on the field, but this is what you miss, guys. This is where you get to know guys in the locker room, and that's what you miss when you retire. You just miss hanging out with your buddies.
How has the crazy Catholic kid changed over the years?
Not much. I still do things the way I want to do them. This is my life. I'm going to live it the way I want to live it. And if people don't like that, that's fine. Everybody has an opinion about people, and I don't really care. It's not going to affect my life at all. And that's how I've always been. And I think I'm a pretty good guy when you get to know me. But it's just a lot of things that have been written and edited on TV. People have their preconceived notions of who you are. I've met a lot of people over the years that said, man, you're nothing like I've seen on TV. I said, well, they kind of edit that the way they want you to look. So I've never really cared about it or bothered with it. If they don't like me, fine, I don't care. It's not going to affect my life. I'm still going to get up and do what I want to do.
How would you like us to edit this interview?
Hey, edit the way you want. I probably won't see it anyway.
We're going to send it to you. Somebody in your family's going to see it. BYU's now finishing up independence. When they went independence, did you think they were crazy?
I'm not, big on, what division you're in. Back then we were in the WAC, and I think Tommy's done a great job here. He keeps trying to build the program bigger and bigger, get more of the country to realize, hey, they're not just a quarterback school. These guys they got a pretty good football team. And I think he's done a heck of a job, keep moving them up. And once they get to start playing these bigger schools, everybody's going to realize, hey, these guys are pretty damn good.
When you think of the schedule this year with teams like Baylor and Notre Dame and Arkansas and Stanford and Oregon, you would have killed to play those kind of teams back in the day, wouldn't you?
No doubt about it. We might have had one big game a year back then. And I remember my sophomore year, going into my sophomore year, our big game was Texas A&M, and it was, I think, the opener. And that's when Mark Wilson had his appendectomy, and he didn't know if he was going to play. And I was actually academically ineligible because I was kind of seeing the writing on the wall, what they were trying to do. And so I remember coming to camp that summer, and Lavelle says, you got to get ready to play. And I said, well, you told me you're going to redshirt me. No, Mark's got an appendectomy. You got to play. So I had to sit in his office for like 3 weeks and get my schoolwork caught up so I could be eligible. And then, of course, Mark came back and played, and I said, all right, Lavelle, I'm redshirt now. I just missed the biggest game of the year. I don't want to play now. So I think he made me dress 1 or 2 more games before he finally said, all right, you sit out. But that was a rough year.
You didn't want to sit out. You didn't want a redshirt. But you look at you and Mark, who both become first-round NFL draft picks. Most schools don't have that kind of problem, and Lavelle had to figure it out. How did he break it to you, and what did you say back? And now looking back, was it the right decision for both of you?
Well, looking back, yeah, it probably was. But at the time, I had just come off my sophomore year. I made all conference. I think I was the first sophomore QB to do that. I knew we were going to be good. Doug Scoville was just coming back. We had, what's the guy's name? I don't even want to mention his name. He was awful. But the year that Scoville was gone. And so I was excited for Doug to come back and get back into that offense. And but I knew, Mark was a hell of a player, and that was, I think Lavelle was smart doing that. But it just, as I was 19 years old or 20 years old, I wanted to play. And so that was a really rough year for me.
Did Scoville tell you to just hang on? Your time is coming?
Well, I don't think Doug liked me a whole lot my freshman year. I just remember, because if you're a second team here, you don't get a lot of reps. And I was at least third team my freshman year. And so I'd stand there and try to watch, 7-on-7 and see what Gifford was doing and try to learn the offense a little bit. And then once out of a blue moon, Doug would say, all right, you're in. And I'd been standing there for an hour, I hadn't thrown a ball. And so I said, Coach, I haven't thrown a ball in an hour. He goes, oh, you're not ready to play? Next guy in. So the next day I would be playing catch, just in case I got a chance, right? And he'd look at me and he goes, well, you're never going to learn anything by playing catch. I could never do nothing right for him. And finally I said, what do you want from me, old man? I mean, come on. One day you tell me to get in it. But it was, and plus he knew I wanted to play baseball. That was my big love. I just wanted to play baseball. I didn't really care about football.
Really?
And so he knew I was going to play baseball, but I didn't know I couldn't get out of spring football practice. I think I only played about 8 games my freshman year, and I played in the outfield. And throwing the ball from the outfield and throwing the ball from the pocket's 2 different things. And so, my arm was giving me some problems. I'd originally hurt it in high school, and it was starting to wear down, and I had to make a decision. Since football was my scholarship, I quit baseball.
It seems like Scoville got out of you what he wanted in the end.
Yeah, like I said, I learned a lot from that guy, and just a lot of it was tough love, but I cherish those 2 years that I got to play with him.
What do you think Lavelle would think of you if you had a conversation with him today? Just the whole Jim McMahon experience. What do you think? What do you think he'd say?
He'd probably say you haven't changed much.
I think he'd probably say you've changed a lot.
I don't know. I think Lavelle and I, we had a good relationship. I had to meet with him every Monday morning for 5 years I was here, and he'd tell me where I was at all weekend. He goes, I had 20 more calls. You were at this party. You were at this party. And I say, Lavelle, what are you talking about? Where were these parties at? And he said, oh, here in Provo. And I said, I've never spent a weekend in Provo. I said, yeah, I was at a party, but it was at Weber State, or I was at Utah State. Because as soon as the game was over here, I was gone. I'd be back in Ogden seeing my buddies. And so we had a lot of fun on the Monday morning meetings. And he just said, just keep on this straight path. And I said, I'm on that path, Coach. I'm on it. It's straight, lead me straight to the NFL, hopefully. And
Well, it did.
It did.
It did. What lesson or principle did Lavelle teach you that's helped you survive an NFL career, survive stardom, deal with health challenges, which you've had plenty of? Is there a principle that you pick up from all of that from years ago that's kind of guided you through?
It's been so long. It's tough to even remember yesterday for me sometimes. But Lavelle was he was so even keel all the time. He was always, really the only time he was upset one time at practice that I really saw him get mad. He stopped practice and screamed at everybody. And then the very next play, I did something that irritated him again. And he kind of grabbed my face mask and was jerking me around, and I kind of knocked his arms off, and I ended up leaving practice that day. I had to end up I had to go up to his house that night and talk to him about it. And it was just something that happened in the practice that irritated me. And because I guess a few people had cursed. And so he goes, I don't want to hear another word like that, out here. And it was the very next play, something happened where the DB, I mean, they know all their plays, right? And we were just running the play. I think it was a couple days before the game. And the guy, DB, came off and hit Scott Phillips, one of our key players, and just kind of a cheap shot. And it was basically under my breath, I said something. And the only guy that heard it was Lavelle. I guess he was standing like right here. And so he grabbed me and did all this. And so I had to go up to his house and talk to him. I said, Coach, look, I said, I've done it my whole life. If I get pissed off, things are going to come out of me. I said, my mom and dad whipped my butt all growing up. It just happens. Then I learned about Tourette's, and I go, I think I got Tourette's. That's why I do that. But yeah, it was, we had an interesting relationship, but I think a good one.
He seemed to understand you.
Yeah, well, he knew I just wanted to win. Yeah. That's all I wanted to do. I hated sitting there on the sideline. I want to play. Whether or not, if I can physically walk out on the field, I'm going to play. And I think he finally realized that.
There's a lot of love that the fan base in this program has sent you since the day you got here, and through the Bears and through all of it. Do you feel that love from you coming back to the folks that send it?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I've always I thought I got along well here. Yeah. I mean, with my teammates, I was hardly ever on campus. I mean, I was here 5 years and didn't graduate. That should tell you something. I didn't even know where some of my classes were. That was just not me. I just wanted to have my 2.0 and carry on. I don't know what else.
Well, now you're one of the pioneers that now has BYU at a P5 level in the Big 12. Do you feel part of it?
I think I'm a little part of it. Yeah. I mean, like I said, there's been so many guys come through here that have done well, and I've gone on and had success. But I think, being who I was and being the Catholic kid at BYU is really kind of got blown all out of proportion. I was the only Catholic guy on this squad.
Your tight end was Catholic.
Yeah, but Bill Scheffler was Catholic. My dad loves to tell this story about how he told Lavelle this after the Holiday Bowl. He goes, "Yeah, the Catholics saved your butt again tonight."
And what Lavelle said?
No, the Catholics won the game for you tonight. And Lavelle would always say, "No, the Catholics tied the game. My little Mormon kicker came and won the game." So my dad tells that story all the time. He loves it.
When you had to play with return missionaries, guys who had left for 2 years and come back, they come back different physically. Some never actually make it back to the same level of competition. They come back different spiritually, with different goals. And you look over the program for the last 4 decades plus, it's managed to be successful while managing kids that leave and come back. And you played in it, and you've seen how the program has grown. Is that a miracle that they could even do that?
Well, I think it helps them, I think, a lot too, because there's some guys that are, might be on the borderline, on the fence. It could be a player or not, could be a starter, and then he goes away for 1.5 years, 2 years, whatever it is. Then he comes back, and he's bigger, and he's a better player sometimes. Sometimes it doesn't work. Sometimes you guys come back that they don't have the desire to play anymore. But I played with some return missionaries they'd give me a run for my money. Yeah. For what would come out of their mouths. I'm like, whoa. And I'm getting in trouble for this, and you're saying that? So that's where I had a little problem. I saw a lot of hypocrisy when I was here, and that bothered me. Because I'm not going to hide, this is me. This is who I am. I'm not going to hide it. So that was a little irritating. But like I said, the guys that I cared about were the guys that I played with in the locker room. I didn't really worry about everything else.
This Jaron Hall's a pretty good quarterback, maybe with a future in the league, with a big challenge, a big schedule ahead of him. What's it like being a star? Is it fun?
Well, it's fun if you got your teammates around you. I mean, the guys up front is what makes it fun. If you got 5 guys up front that you can trust, I don't care who the receivers are or the backs. You give me 5 guys that want to fight, we'll win games. And that's you know, if they've got a good offensive line, he should be fine.
Let's finish with a quote that you probably once said. Ty Detmer is the most overrated Heisman winner in the history of college football. You want to expound on that?
Yeah, how could he win and I didn't? What the hell?
I only won it because you were there.
Yeah, you guys helped. You guys helped put the place on the map, and then of course he had to take down #1 Miami out here, which he did. But what a legacy your group has.
Well, it started, I think, with Gary Scheide. You know, Gifford really put us on the map nationally. And then, you know, Mark come along and had the year that he had his sophomore year. I mean, everybody knew who BYU was back then as far as throwing the football. And then I came in and had good success. You know, I think I was the first guy to throw for over 4,000 yards.
I think you set 72 records.
Yeah, I mean, my junior year, I couldn't, you know, and I missed 3 games. If you add up the time I sat on the bench, I mean, who knows what could have happened if Livell would have let me play a little bit longer. That irritated me too sometimes.
Well, you were ahead by too much.
Well, hell, we were ahead before when Mark was playing, and he kept playing. I said, how come I can't get to play more? I'd be out at halftime a lot. And I'm
And
like,
what would he
"Damn."
say when you're complaining that you're ahead too much?
Well, I kind of like sitting out the second half.
Now, Blaine Fowler, who I broadcast games with forever, and we're really good friends, I believe he said, was it either you or Bosco that it was snowing in Wyoming or whatever, and you didn't want to play in the snow, so you were out and he was in. I don't know if it might have been Bosco, but it was
No,
just
Bosco.
a cold, ugly day over there, and he was like, I'm feeling a little tight. I don't think I can go today, because he didn't want to go out there.
That must have been Bosco. I was going out there.
Yeah, after you get young, and then here comes Bosco, and then a few years later, you got Ty and the Heisman Trophy. And that Heisman Trophy, national championship, Super Bowls, and Mark is another first-round pick. But it's a group.
Yeah, I don't think there's too many schools that can boast that record. You know, have guys that won a Heisman, national championship, Super Bowl. I mean, they've got a lot of history here.
You still look good in blue, whether it's Navy or Royal or whatever.
Hey, I look good in anything though. Yeah. Well, not right now. I don't have any color on my body. I've been inside for 7 months.
Well, your best days ahead.
Well, I'm hoping. Once I get this foot, you know, squared away, I think life's been good. You know, I've every 3 or 4 months I have to go back to New York and get an adjustment for my head. I still got a bad head and neck problem. Yeah. But other than that, when I'm adjusted and I'm functioning properly, I'm fairly normal. But as soon as I start having headaches and all I want to do is lay in a dark room, that's when I know I got to go see the doc. But other than that, you know, my body feels fairly good after 22 surgeries.
22.
Yeah, I went down to Columbia 3 years ago. I had stem cells put in both knees, both elbows, both shoulders, my neck, and my spine. Had an IV.
They give you a new name?
I got like 200 million stem cells.
Wow.
And here in the States, they can only use up to 1 million at a time because they don't want you healthy here. They want you sick and taking their pills. So I went down there and my body feels really good.
Good.
So.
Well, when you see this interview with all these lights and this crew that's shooting it, you'll say, hey, you know what? I still look pretty good.
Yeah.
I think you.
Maybe good angles for me. Yeah.
Thank you.
Hey,
appreciate
thank
your
you.
time.
Good to be here.
Are you going to get to any games this year?
I have no idea.
The Notre Dame game in Vegas would be a fun one.
Oh, that's in Vegas? I could probably make that one.
To the Legion.
It's only a 4-hour drive for me.
Are you in LA now?
No, I'm in Arizona,
Oh,
Scottsdale.
Yeah. Scottsdale. The Kalani was just down there with, he had 2 days with all the new coaches of the Big 12 and the current coaches. That was kind of his baptism into the Big Boys Club. They had 2 days down there. I don't know if they played golf or not, if they just had meetings. I think it was 100 and something. Doesn't take long to get roasting down there. That's good for, you don't mind the heat, do you?
No, love the heat.
After winters in Chicago, I'm not surprised you live in Scottsdale.
I grew up in California. I don't like cold weather.
Yeah.
Never have. I like this, shorts, flip-flops.
Jim, can we do one last thing, if you don't mind? Just tell the camera to say, like, You're watching BYU Football Media Day on BYU TV.
You're watching BYU Media Day on BYU TV.
BYU Football Media Day, which is tomorrow on BYU TV.
Do I got to say who I am or just say?
Well, we know.
All right. Say when.
Okay.
Hi, you're watching BYU Media Day on BYU TV.